I'm here with Jeff Chu, journalist and author of Does Jesus Really Love Me? A Gay Christian's Pilgrimage in Search of God in America. Jeff will also be a featured speaker at this year's Frederick Buechner Writers Workshop at Princeton Theological Seminary. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
As you know, Frederick Buechner will soon be turning 90. Is there anything you would like to wish him for this great milestone?
I think it's impossible for any writer to fully understand the effect that his words have on the world. But I suppose my wish for Mr. Buechner is that he would have some sense of the transformational power that his God-given talents and his words and his wisdom have had on so many people. I think only someone who has doubted, who has wrestled with his faith, only someone who's been in that situation could write as profoundly about doubt as he has. So my prayer would be that God would whisper in his ear enough so that he believes the effect that he's had on so many.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I'm sure that Mr. Buechner will greatly appreciate hearing from you. Next, can you tell me how you first learned about his work?
It was a gift from a friend. I got one of the books. And I didn't know who he was. I just got this paperback and started reading as one does, and I was drawn into the world that he creates. It was different from the conservative evangelical certainty-based theology that I was used to, and it opened my eyes to something different, a different way of looking at faith, a different way of looking at spirituality, and a different way of looking at myself and my relationship with God. I think it might actually be a little bit limiting to say that his writing has affected my career, as if career were somehow primary. I think what Mr. Buechner writes about is life and the relationship that we have with God, God's love for us, God's grace for us. So that really transcends career. It encompasses so much more than that. And I would say that the writing that he's done, the writing of his that I've read, has just opened me up to possibility in a way that few writers have.
Which of Mr. Buechner's books has meant the most to you?
First and foremost, I would say Whistling in the Dark. There was a time when I didn't believe that doubt was a good thing, that it was acceptable in the context of faith. In the churches of my childhood, I think certainty and clarity were always the goals, and to admit doubt was akin to admitting failure. So opening up the possibility of doubt as something to be embraced, not something to be shunned, was a powerful thing. I think a close second would be Alphabet of Grace. Having grown up in the church, I think I'm still learning a little bit more every day about the power of grace, not just in extending it, but also in receiving it and experiencing it.
Would you say that Mr. Buechner has inspired any of the writing that you've done?
I think it's hard for me to link my writing directly to another writer. It would be kind of presumptuous for me to say that there's an inspirational link there, but he definitely has influenced the way I think.
More broadly speaking, what influence would you say that Mr. Buechner has had on Christianity and the world at large?
If you look at the world of faith, I would say Frederick Buechner was so ahead of his time in terms of integrating questions into our practice of American Christianity. Really, he was ahead of his time in acknowledging that the questions that we ask are sometimes as important, if not more important, than the answers that we claim to have. There's an acknowledgement in his work of all that we can't know. And if I could be so bold as to call him a prophet, I think his role has been in part to remind us of the mystery of our faith and the mystery of our God, which I think is a majestic and powerful thing that sometimes we underestimate.
That's great, Jeff. For what it's worth, I totally agree with what you just said, and I think that his being way ahead of the rest of us, the rest of the world, the rest of the world of faith in particular, is quite evident. So I realize this next question is difficult, but if you were to sum up Fred in a few words, what would you say?
Yeah, I thought about this for a while. If I had to sum up Frederick Buechner, which is very difficult given how much he's written, I would call him a humble and wise companion for our journey.
That's great. Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we finish?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Jeff. We appreciate you taking the time to send these words along to Mr. Buechner.
It's a pleasure.